My brother was the golden child who got everything: brand new cars, private school, endless support, the whole royal treatment. I got scraps and lectures about building character. But this Thanksgiving, the script completely flipped. When my entitled brother discovered I had been quietly sitting on $29 million, his face went pale, then twisted with pure rage and greed. Within minutes, he was demanding half because we're family. Hey Reddit, Ada for telling him he's not getting a single cent. The meltdown that followed was absolutely nuclear. Buckle up because this story is long, messy, and absolutely satisfying. I'm 34, male, the oldest of 2 kids. My brother Tyler, 29, male, has been the family favorite since birth. Not exaggerating. From the moment this kid existed, my parents acted like they'd won the lottery. Meanwhile, I was basically the trial run they tolerated while waiting for the real star to arrive. Let me paint you a picture of what favoritism looks like when it's not even trying to hide itself. Growing up, the favoritism wasn't subtle. It was aggressive, in your face, documented on social media, obvious. Tyler got a brand new Honda Accord for his 16th birthday with a giant bow on top. My parents invited the whole neighborhood to watch him unwrap it like some kind of car reveal party. Posted about 50 photos on Facebook with captions about how proud they were of their amazing son and how he deserved this for being such a wonderful young man. The party lasted 4 hours. They hired a catering company, had balloons and a banner. My dad gave this speech about Tyler's bright future and how the car was just the beginning of all the great things coming his way. People clapped. Tyler cried. Mom cried. It was like watching a graduation ceremony for getting a car. My 16th birthday. Got a used bicycle from Craigslist that was 2 sizes too small. No party. No Facebook posts. Just happy birthday over breakfast before Dad left for work. The bike had rust on the chain and a seat that wouldn't stay level. When I pointed out the seat issue, Dad said it would build character to ride it as is. I rode that thing for 2 years before the frame cracked. And when it finally broke, I had to save up my own money from mowing lawns to replace it. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. My friends' parents would see Tyler's new car parked in our driveway and then see me riding that janky bike and ask questions. My parents' explanation was always some variation of, "We believe in teaching different lessons to different kids based on their needs." Translation: Tyler deserves nice things and you don't. But the car was just the beginning of the inequality show. Tyler went to this fancy private school across town called Westman Academy. 15 grand a year, small class sizes, college prep, everything. The campus looked like something from a movie. Actual ivy on brick buildings, a library with leather chairs, a cafeteria that served real food instead of mystery meat. They had robotics clubs, debate teams, AP classes taught by people with actual PhDs. Parents paid extra for SAT boot camps built into the curriculum. I went to Lincoln Public High School where the ceiling tiles leaked when it rained. And half the textbooks were from the 90s. Our library was one room with books that hadn't been updated since before I was born. The chemistry lab had equipment so old our teacher would apologize before demonstrations. We had one guidance counselor for 400 students. College prep meant a bulletin board with pamphlets about community colleges. When I asked why Tyler got private school and I didn't, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table with this serious expression like she was about to explain quantum physics. She explained that Tyler needed the extra academic support because he was gifted and required specialized attention to reach his full potential. Said he had a different learning style that required individualized instruction that public school couldn't provide. Gifted. This kid barely graduated with a 2.6 GPA from that expensive private school while I maintained a 3.9 at my underfunded public school working twice as hard. Tyler's idea of studying was skimming SparkNotes 10 minutes before class. He'd come home and Mom would help him with his homework. Actually do most of it while Tyler played video games in the same room. Meanwhile, I'd be up until midnight working through calculus problems from a textbook so outdated it still referenced cassette tapes as modern technology. Asked my parents for a tutor once because I was struggling with chemistry. Dad said tutors were expensive and I should figure it out by asking my teachers for help. Except my teachers had 150 students each and no time for individual attention. But sure, Tyler was the one who needed special attention. The double standards were everywhere and impossible to ignore. Tyler got name brand everything. Nike shoes, North Face jackets, designer jeans that cost more than my monthly lunch budget. I got whatever was on clearance at the outlet mall, usually 2 sizes too big so I could grow into it. Wore the same 3 shirts in rotation all through high school because that's what I could afford with my lawn mowing money. Tyler's birthday parties had themes and decorations and catered food. For his 13th birthday, they rented out a section of the local arcade and invited his entire grade. Professional decorations, custom cake from an actual bakery, goodie bags for every guest. The whole event probably cost more than a mortgage payment. Mine were sheet cake from the grocery store if anyone remembered at all. Most years my birthday just passed without acknowledgement until someone mentioned it 3 days later. Oh. Was that this week? Well, happy belated birthday. No party, no gifts, no celebration, just another Tuesday that happened to be the day I was born. When Tyler made the JV basketball team sophomore year, despite being terrible at basketball, my parents bought season tickets and attended every single game, brought signs with his jersey number, cheered loud enough to embarrass him, posted highlight reels on social media. Tyler played maybe 5 minutes total per game, mostly garbage time when the outcome was already decided, but you'd think he was an NBA prospect from how they carried on. I made varsity cross-country junior year and qualified for state championships after months of training, running 6 miles every morning before school, doing interval training after classes, pushing through injuries and exhaustion. Made it to state competition, which was a huge deal. Only the top runners from each region qualified. Know how many meets my parents attended? 0. Not one. They were too busy driving Tyler to basketball camps 3 hours away every weekend. Camps that cost $500 a session so he could learn ball handling skills he'd never actually use. Asked them once if they could maybe come to finals since I had a real shot at placing. Mom said she'd try, but Tyler had an important game that same day. The game was junior varsity basketball. My race was a state championship. Guess which one they attended? I finished third in my heat and got a medal. Texted them a picture. Mom replied, "That's nice, sweetie. Tyler's team won by 12. The message was clear. Tyler's mediocre achievements mattered more than my exceptional ones. College applications rolled around and the inequality reached peak levels. Tyler applied to a dozen schools, including some reaches he had no business applying to with his grades. Schools like USC and Boston University that required a 3.5 plus GPA and strong test scores. Tyler had neither. But my parents were convinced their special boy could get in anywhere with the right presentation. They hired this private admissions consultant named Jennifer, who charged $200 an hour to help polish his essays and strategize his applications. Jennifer worked with Tyler for 6 months, meeting twice a week, basically writing his essays for him and coaching him on interview techniques. They paid for official SAT prep courses that cost $1,500, hired a math tutor for $75 an hour to help with the subjects he was failing, brought in an English tutor to review his essays, and basically built his entire college application from scratch using professional help at every stage. I handled mine alone, filled out my own FAFSA, wrote my own essays during lunch breaks at school, researched schools using the single computer in our school's outdated library, applied to 8 schools, and got into 6 of them, including my top choice state university with a partial academic scholarship. My parents' reaction when I told them the news: "That's good. Make sure you apply for student loans because we can't help with tuition." No celebration, no pride, no acknowledgement that I'd earned a partial scholarship through my own academic achievement. Just immediate concerns about how I'd pay for the rest. Meanwhile, Tyler got into a mediocre private college 3 states away called something like Henderson College. Nothing impressive. Mid-tier private school with a 65% acceptance rate that basically accepted anyone who could pay. But it was private and far from home, which apparently made it prestigious in my parents' eyes. They immediately committed to paying his full tuition, about $45,000 per year, room and board, meal plan, textbooks, even a monthly allowance for expenses. Expenses like bars and restaurants, and spring break trips, as it turned out, did the math once out of curiosity. Over 4 years, they spent roughly $200,000 on Tyler's college experience. Books, tuition, housing allowance, emergency funds when he'd blow through his budget, plane tickets home for breaks, care packages of expensive snacks and supplies. Every penny documented on their credit card statements that I saw once when helping Dad with his computer. My total parental contribution, $0.00, not for tuition, not for books, not for housing, nothing. When I graduated high school, Mom handed me a card with $50 inside and said it was to help me get started. $50 that covered maybe 2 textbooks if I bought used copies. I worked through college, not work-study for spending money. I'm talking full-time night shifts at a distribution warehouse while taking a full course load. The warehouse was this massive facility outside town where they stored everything from auto parts to furniture. I worked in the loading dock section, scanning packages, loading trucks, moving pallets with a forklift when I was certified. Shifts started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m., 4 nights a week minimum, sometimes 5 when I needed extra money. The work was brutal, lifting boxes that weighed up to 50 pounds, scanning and sorting thousands of packages per shift, working in a warehouse that wasn't climate controlled, so it was freezing in winter and boiling in summer. My back hurt constantly. My hands were always scraped and bruised from moving boxes. I'd come home smelling like cardboard and sweat. Schedule looked like this. Leave for warehouse at 9:30 p.m. Work until 6 a.m. Drive home, shower, change, make it to my 8 a.m. class by 7:50. Attend classes until 3 p.m. Sometimes later if I had labs, head to library to study until 9 p.m. because my apartment was too depressing and I needed the focus. Grab a quick dinner, usually instant ramen or whatever was cheapest at the convenience store. Sleep from 9 p.m. to 9 p.m., if I was lucky. More often about 5 hours before starting the cycle again. Survived on instant ramen and day-old bagels from the campus cafeteria. Made friends with the cafeteria workers who'd save me the leftover bagels and sometimes slip me a sandwich at closing time. Ate a lot of meals consisting of plain pasta with butter because a box of pasta cost 99 cents and butter was cheap. Splurged on pizza once a month when I could afford it. Lost weight constantly because I was burning more calories than I could afford to eat. My apartment was this tiny studio in the worst part of town. $450 a month, which was cheap by college standards, but still ate up most of my paycheck. The place had stains on the carpet that were there when I moved in, a kitchenette that consisted of a hot plate and a dorm fridge, and neighbors who fought loud enough to hear through the walls at 3 a.m. Shower barely worked. Heat was inconsistent and I'm pretty sure there was mold growing somewhere in the bathroom that I just learned to ignore. Slept on a mattress on the floor for the first 2 years because I couldn't afford a bed frame. Used milk crates as furniture. Had one lamp because overhead lighting made the electric bill too high. Wore the same rotation of clothes until they wore out. Then hit up thrift stores for replacements. Winter coat had a broken zipper that I safety pinned shut. Shoes had holes in them that I patched with duct tape. Meanwhile, Tyler was living his best life at Henderson College. His Facebook was full of pictures from fraternity parties, spring break trips to Cancun and Miami, nights out at expensive restaurants, concerts, and sporting events. Posted constantly about his college experience like he was documenting some coming-of-age film. Photos of him with his frat brothers, all of them in matching outfits they probably paid $200 each for. Pictures from formal dances where he'd rented a tuxedo. Weekend trips to ski resorts and beaches. Parents paid for all of it. When I asked Tyler once how he afforded everything, he just shrugged and said mom and dad sent him money whenever he needed it. They want me to enjoy college, he explained like that was normal. Like parents funding their kids' party lifestyle while their other kid worked night shifts and ate ramen was just standard operating procedure. Graduated with $60,000 in student loan debt and chronic back pain from lifting boxes for 4 years straight. Had stress-related health issues, constant headaches, stomach problems, insomnia even when I had time to sleep. My degree was in supply chain management because I'd gotten interested in logistics from working at the warehouse and figured I might as well study something I had practical experience in. Tyler joined a fraternity first semester, went to spring break in Cancun, 3 years running, posted Instagram stories from bars every weekend, and graduated in 5 years because he failed organic chemistry twice, and had to retake several other courses. My parents paid for the extra year without complaint. Also paid for his fraternity dues, his spring break trips, his meal plan upgrades, and sent him care packages of expensive snacks and supplies every month. Probably dropped another $250,000 on him across those 5 years when you added everything up. After graduation, things somehow got worse before they got better. Tyler moved back home rent-free while finding himself and exploring opportunities. That exploration mostly involved sleeping until noon and playing video games while my parents brought him breakfast in bed. He'd wake up around 11 a.m., shower, play Call of Duty until 3 p.m. Then spend the afternoon networking, which meant scrolling through LinkedIn, and occasionally sending connection requests to people he'd never met. This lifestyle lasted for 18 months. He'd occasionally apply for jobs, but would turn down anything that wasn't a management position or didn't pay 6 figures. Had zero work experience beyond a summer internship his sophomore year that dad had arranged through a business contact. But Tyler was convinced he deserved to start as a director of something. Sent out maybe 5 applications per month. Spent maybe an hour total on job searching, then complained about how the job market is broken and companies don't recognize talent anymore. My parents supported this completely. Dad would tell his friends that Tyler was being strategic about his career moves and waiting for the right opportunity. Mom would defend his unemployment by saying he was taking time to figure out his path and shouldn't settle for just any job. They let him live rent-free, paid for his food, covered his car insurance and phone bill, even gave him an allowance for professional networking expenses, which meant dinners out and coffee shop meetings where he'd pitch his non-existent expertise to anyone who'd listen. I moved to a different city for work immediately after graduation. Got a decent job at a regional logistics company making $42,000 a year, which felt like winning the lottery after years of scraping by on warehouse wages and student wages. Started in June, 2 weeks after graduation. Didn't even take a break. Went straight from final exams to full-time employment because I couldn't afford to be unemployed for even a week. Rented a studio apartment that was basically a closet with a hot plate, but it was mine and I could afford it barely. After rent $800, student loans $650, utilities $100, car insurance $120, gas $80, and food $200. If I was careful, I had maybe $200 left per month for everything else. Clothes, emergency expenses, any kind of life beyond basic survival. All had to come from that $200 buffer. Ate store brand cereal for dinner most nights because after paying rent and loans, there wasn't much left. Meal prepped on Sundays, big batches of rice and beans, pasta with basic sauce, whatever protein was on sale. Learned to cook out of necessity because eating out was a luxury I couldn't afford. Bought a rice cooker at a thrift store for $5. And that thing saved me hundreds of dollars over the years. My parents never visited. Not once in 3 years. Too busy catering to Tyler's various ventures that all required startup capital they happily provided. He tried day trading for 6 months, convinced he could make millions from his childhood bedroom. Dad gave him $15,000 to invest. Tyler lost it all within 4 months on bad crypto bets and penny stocks that tanked. Parents' response. Well, that's how you learn. He tried starting a protein shake MLM. Next, signed up as a distributor, bought $8,000 worth of inventory that he stored in the garage, spent 3 months trying to get his friends to buy overpriced nutrition products, made $200 in sales before giving up. Parents ate the loss. Literally, they were drinking protein shakes for a year, trying to use up the inventory. Then came the social media consulting business. Tyler created a website and business cards. Called himself a digital marketing strategist despite having 0 clients or proven results. Parents paid $5,000 for the website design, logo creation, and initial marketing materials. Tyler posted about his business constantly on social media, sharing articles about social media trends with commentary like, "This is exactly what I've been saying." Got 0 clients in 8 months before quietly abandoning the business and moving on to the next scheme. Every family gathering became a Tyler appreciation event. Thanksgiving conversations revolved around his latest business idea. Christmas was about his needs and wants. Easter dinner was spent discussing his job search, and how companies just didn't understand his vision. Family members would ask him about his plans and nod along like he was sharing groundbreaking business insights instead of half-formed ideas he'd read on entrepreneur blogs. Meanwhile, I'd get maybe 5 minutes of attention if I was lucky. "How's work?" "Fine." "That's good." Then right back to Tyler's saga. Nobody asked about my career progression, my struggles, my goals. I was just the responsible one who'd figured everything out, so there was nothing interesting to discuss. Tyler was the one who needed support, attention, guidance, endless second chances, and blank checks to fund his delusions. By 26, I'd paid off my student loans through aggressive budgeting and side hustles. Lived on maybe 60% of my income, putting everything else toward loan payments. Worked extra hours whenever possible. Took on freelance logistics consulting projects on weekends. Sold plasma twice a month for extra cash. Did whatever it took to get that debt eliminated because I was tired of watching a chunk of every paycheck disappear to interest. Started investing small amounts in index funds, learning everything I could about personal finance from library books and free online resources. Read every personal finance book I could get my hands on. Stuff about compound interest, tax-advantaged accounts, diversification strategies. Learned about Roth IRAs, 401k matching, the difference between growth and value investing. Started with maybe $100 a month in investments, gradually increasing as my income grew and my expenses stayed flat. Lived below my means consistently. Drove a 10-year-old sedan that I maintained myself after learning basic car repair from YouTube videos. Cooked all my meals at home. Cut my own hair for a while before admitting that looked terrible and finding a cheap barber. Wore clothes until they literally fell apart. Every bonus and raise went straight into savings and investments. Most months I could save 40% of my income by just refusing to inflate my lifestyle as my income increased. At 28, everything changed. Got recruited by a tech startup called something like StreamLogix. They were trying to revolutionize supply chain management for e-commerce companies, but their logistics were a mess. Shipments constantly delayed, inventory management was basically guesswork. Customer satisfaction was in the toilet. They needed someone to build out their supply chain logistics from scratch. Someone who understood both the tech side and the practical warehouse operations side. The salary was good, about $85,000, nearly double what I'd been making. But the real draw was the equity package. 2% of the company if I could make their distribution network actually function. 2% doesn't sound like much until you do the math on what happens if the company succeeds. I negotiated hard for that equity, understanding that startup equity was either worth millions or worthless depending on whether the company made it. Spent 18 months working 80-hour weeks, solving problems nobody else could figure out. Building systems from the ground up. Implemented new warehouse management software. Reorganized their entire shipping strategy. Negotiated better rates with carriers. Trained their staff on proper procedures. Turned their distribution network from a disaster into one of the most efficient systems in their market segment. Customer satisfaction went from 60% to 94%. Shipping times dropped by 40%. Costs decreased by 25%. The company got acquired by a major corporation when I was 30. StreamLogix had grown from struggling startup to legitimate player in the e-commerce logistics space, and a Fortune 500 company wanted their technology and client base. My equity package was suddenly worth $8 million. After taxes, I walked away with roughly $5.2 million in actual liquid assets. Didn't tell anyone, kept living in the same modest apartment, driving the same old car, wearing the same clearance rack clothes. Invested most of it conservatively across index funds, bonds, and real estate investment trusts. Kept working because I actually enjoyed the challenge and wanted my wealth to keep growing. Started a diversified portfolio that grew steadily over the next few years. Didn't tell anyone. Kept living in the same modest apartment, driving the same old car, wearing the same clearance rack clothes. Invested most of it conservatively. Kept working because I actually enjoyed the challenge and started a diversified portfolio that grew steadily over the next few years. At 32, I made another smart investment in a logistics tech platform that got bought out 18 months later. That added another $12 million. Then a real estate opportunity brought in another $4 million. A few other smaller investments did well. By 34, I was sitting on a portfolio worth roughly $30 million. Still didn't tell anyone. Why would I? My family had spent my entire life showing me I wasn't a priority. They'd chosen Tyler over and over. I didn't owe them information about my success. Kept my lifestyle modest, nice apartment, nothing flashy. Upgraded my car to something reliable but not exotic. Ate at good restaurants occasionally. Donated quietly to causes I cared about. Just didn't broadcast my wealth, especially not to family. Tyler, meanwhile, was still finding himself at 29. Still living at home rent-free. Still pitching business ideas that went nowhere. Still getting funded by parents who were now dipping into retirement savings to support his dreams. He'd started some cryptocurrency consulting business that involved posting about Bitcoin on Twitter and calling himself a financial advisor despite having zero qualifications. My parents kept asking when I'd settle down, buy a house, start a family. Kept making comments about how I needed to be more ambitious like Tyler, who was building an empire from their basement. The irony was suffocating. Then came Thanksgiving. This year, the gathering was at my parents' house like always. Tyler was there with his girlfriend Madison, who seemed nice, but was clearly impressed by his entrepreneur status. My aunt and uncle came along with my cousin who'd just gotten engaged. The usual dynamic played out. Everyone fawned over Tyler's latest business pitch. Something about NFTs and digital assets that made no sense, but sounded impressive. He was wearing expensive clothes my parents had obviously bought, talking about disrupting the financial sector while living in their basement. My aunt asked me about work. I said it was going well. I'd recently taken a senior advisory role at a major logistics firm. Before I could say more, Tyler jumped in with some comment about how traditional employment was dead and he was building generational wealth through decentralized finance. Generational wealth from the basement at 29 years old. Dinner was the usual interrogation. Why wasn't I married? Did I own property? Wasn't I worried about my future? Tyler had such ambition while I was just working a regular job. Madison kept nodding along like Tyler was a business genius instead of an unemployed 29-year-old living off his parents. Then my cousin asked about investments. She'd just gotten engaged and they were saving for a wedding and house. Wanted advice on where to put their money. Tyler immediately launched into his cryptocurrency pitch. Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, NFTs, how traditional investing was obsolete. Claimed he'd made significant returns through crypto trading. My parents nodded approvingly. Everything he said was wrong or dangerously misleading. You don't put wedding savings into cryptocurrency. This was terrible advice that could destroy their financial future. I should have stayed quiet. I'd spent years staying quiet while Tyler got praised for mediocrity, but watching him potentially ruin my cousin's financial planning finally broke something in me. That's actually really bad advice, I said calmly. You shouldn't put short-term savings into volatile assets. For a 3 to 5 year goal, like a wedding and house, you want stable, liquid investments, index funds, bonds, high-yield savings, not cryptocurrency. The table went quiet. Tyler's face went red. What do you know about investing? You just work a regular job. I know enough. I replied. Oh. Really? Tyler's voice dripped with condescension. How much have you made from investments? A few thousand. This was the moment. I could have backed down, stayed humble, kept my secret, but his smug face, my parents' approving looks. Madison's impressed expression, all for a guy who'd never earned anything, made me done with pretending. About $30 million, I said quietly. Absolute dead silence. Tyler laughed first. Right. Sure you have. I'm serious. My portfolio is currently valued at roughly $30 million. Started with equity from a startup acquisition, made smart investments after that. It's grown pretty well. My dad's fork clattered against his plate. You have $30 million roughly? Yes. My mom just stared, mouth open like she was trying to catch flies. Tyler's laugh died. You're lying. There's no way you have that kind of money. You drive an old car. Yeah, because I don't need to impress anyone. The money is invested. Working for me, growing. My uncle asked if I was serious. I pulled out my phone, opened my portfolio app, and showed him the summary. His eyes went huge. That's incredible. Good for you. My aunt looked genuinely happy. That's wonderful. You've done so well. My parents and Tyler. Different story. Mom's face went from shock to something harder. Dad looked like he was doing math, calculating money spent on Tyler. Tyler looked punched in the stomach. Madison was staring at me with new interest. That look that says, wait, I might have bet on the wrong brother. The rest of dinner was awkward. Conversation kept trying to restart but dying. Tyler kept shooting me looks like I'd betrayed him. My parents seemed unable to process this. My cousin kept asking investment questions I was happy to answer. After dinner, I helped clear plates. My mom cornered me in the kitchen. Why didn't you tell us? Not we're proud or that's amazing, just accusation. Because it never came up. And honestly, why would I? You've never been particularly interested in my life. That's not fair. We've always cared. Mom, you didn't attend a single cross-country meet. You didn't contribute $1 to college while spending $200,000 on Tyler. You visited me 0 times. Don't tell me you cared when your actions prove otherwise. She looked stung. We did our best with what we had. Tyler needed more support. Tyler needed accountability. I cut her off. He needed parents who would teach him responsibility instead of funding every failed business idea. He's 29 years old, living in your basement. That's not support, that's enabling. Dad appeared in the doorway. We should talk about this as a family. That conversation happened in their living room 30 minutes later. Tyler sat with his arms crossed. Madison perched next to him, looking uncomfortable. My parents sat across from me like this was some kind of intervention. Dad opened with questions about how I'd made the money. I explained the startup equity, the subsequent investments, the diversification strategy. Kept it high level because honestly, they wouldn't understand the details anyway. Mom wanted to know why I'd hidden it. I explained I hadn't hidden anything, I just hadn't announced it. There's a difference. Wealth isn't something you broadcast, especially to people who'd spent your whole life treating you as less important than your sibling. Then came the part I'd been waiting for. Well, Tyler said slowly, I think it's only fair that you share some of that wealth with family. We're your family. That money should benefit all of us. I actually laughed. Share it? Why exactly would I do that? Because that's what family does. Mom jumped in. We support each other. We've supported you your whole life. Stop. I held up my hand. You supported Tyler my whole life. You spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on him while I got nothing. Funded his lifestyle, his failed businesses, his extended adolescence. I worked my way through college with nothing from you. Built my career with nothing from you. Made my fortune with nothing from you. This wealth exists because of my work, my decisions, my sacrifices. None of you contributed to it in any way. Dad tried the guilt angle. We gave you a place to grow up. Food, shelter, education, the bare legal minimum required by law, I interrupted. That's not something I owe you for. That's called being a parent. You're supposed to provide those things. You don't get bonus points for meeting baseline requirements. Tyler's face was getting redder. So, you're just going to hoard $30 million while your family struggles? Struggles? I repeated incredulously. You live rent-free in a house your parents own. You eat food they buy. You wear clothes they pay for. You're not struggling. You're a grown man being completely subsidized by aging parents while pretending to be an entrepreneur. I'm building something. He shouted. You're building nothing. I shot back. You've been building something for 7 years with 0 results. You've lost tens of thousands of their money on schemes and scams. You're 29 years old and you've never supported yourself for a single month of your adult life. Madison shifted uncomfortably, clearly starting to see what I'd seen for years. My mom started crying. How can you be so cruel to your own brother? How can you ask me to fund the lifestyle of someone who's contributed nothing? I countered. You've spent my entire life showing me exactly how much you value me compared to Tyler. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Dad pulled out the family card. Blood is thicker than water. Family takes care of family. We raised you both the same. That's a lie and you know it. I said flatly. You didn't raise us the same. You raised Tyler like a prince and me like an afterthought. Every resource, every opportunity, every bit of attention went to him. I was just the backup kid you tolerated. That's not true, Mom protested. Mom, you missed my state championship meet to drive Tyler to a basketball camp. You bought him a new car and gave me a broken bike. You paid his full college tuition and told me to take out loans. Stop pretending you treated us equally when we both know that's complete garbage. The room went quiet again. Truth has a way of doing that. Tyler tried once more. Look, I'm sorry you feel that way about your childhood, but that's in the past. Right now, I'm trying to build something real, and I just need some capital to get it off the ground. As my brother, someone with the resources to help, I think you have a moral obligation. I have 0 obligation to fund your continued failure. I said coldly. You've had every advantage I never got. Private school. Paid college. Continued financial support well into your late 20s. If you haven't figured out how to succeed with all that help, more money won't fix whatever's broken. So that's it, he demanded. You're going to keep all that money for yourself? Yes, I said simply, because I earned it, and because you'd waste it within a year, just like you've wasted every other resource you've been given. Madison stood up. I think I should go. Tyler barely noticed her leaving. He was too busy glaring at me like I was the villain in this scenario. My parents spent the next hour trying every manipulation tactic they could think of. Guilt, obligation, family unity. What would the relatives think? How could I be so selfish? Didn't I understand they'd sacrificed for me? On and on. I let them talk themselves out. When they finally stopped, I stood up. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. I'm going to leave. I'm going to continue living my life and managing my wealth as I see fit. You're going to continue enabling Tyler's extended adolescence until you run out of retirement savings, and we're going to have very minimal contact going forward because this conversation has made it crystal clear that you only care about me now, that I have something you want. That's not fair, Mom cried. It's completely fair, I replied. You had 34 years to treat me like I mattered. You chose not to. You don't get to suddenly pretend I'm important now that I have money. I walked toward the door. Tyler followed me. You're really going to do this? He asked. Just cut us off. You've never been cut off, I pointed out. Hard to cut off someone you were never connected to in the first place. Drove home in silence. My phone started blowing up within an hour. Texts from my parents, from Tyler, even from my aunt and uncle asking what happened after I left. I turned off notifications and went to bed. The next week was a nightmare of harassment. My parents called daily. Tyler sent long texts about how I was destroying the family, how I owed him for being his brother, how he'd always looked up to me, and this was devastating. Madison broke up with him, which he somehow blamed on me for embarrassing him in front of his girlfriend. My mom started a family group chat explaining how she was worried about my mental health and thought I might need professional help for being so angry and vindictive. Several relatives reached out asking if I was okay and what really happened at Thanksgiving. I sent one message to the family group chat. I'm fine. I'm successful. I built my wealth through hard work and smart decisions. My family spent my childhood and young adult life showing me I wasn't a priority. Now they want access to my money. I said no. That's the whole story. Then I muted the chat. My uncle called personally to say he understood and was proud of me. My cousin sent a message thanking me for the investment advice and saying she'd always known I was the smart one. A few other relatives reached out privately to express support, but my parents and Tyler, they lost their minds. Tyler started posting on social media about fake family and people who forget where they came from. Never mentioned me by name, but it was obviously directed at me. Posted vague quotes about loyalty and brotherhood and how money changes people. The irony of a 29-year-old basement dweller funded entirely by his parents posting about people changing was apparently lost on him. My mom called from random numbers when I blocked her regular one, left voicemails about how I was breaking her heart and how she didn't raise me to be so selfish. The woman who gave me a rusty bike while buying Tyler a new car was lecturing me about selfishness. Dad tried the logical approach. Sent emails with spreadsheets, showing how I could easily give Tyler a few $1,000,000 to get started and still have plenty left over, like I was some kind of ATM who should dispense cash to family members on demand. I ignored all of it. Focused on my work, my investments, my life. Started dating someone who knew nothing about my family drama, and liked me for who I was rather than what I had. Donated substantial amounts to charities that actually made a difference. Lived well, but not ostentatiously. 3 months after Thanksgiving, Tyler showed up at my apartment. Security called to clear him because he wasn't on my guest list. I told them to send him away. He refused to leave. Security threatened to call the police. He started yelling about being my brother and having a right to see me. I went downstairs to avoid him getting arrested. He looked terrible, unshaven, clothes rumpled, eyes wild with desperation. I need your help, he said immediately. No, just hear me out. No, please. I'll pay you back. I just need seed money for this business. No, why are you being like this? His voice cracked. I'm your brother. We're family. You have so much and I have nothing. How can you just watch me struggle? I looked at him for a long moment. This man-child who'd gotten everything handed to him his entire life and squandered it all. Who'd lived off our parents well into his late 20s while they drained their retirement. Who'd never worked a real job. Never faced real consequences. Never built anything that lasted. Tyler, I said quietly, you don't have nothing because I have everything. You have nothing because you've never built anything. You've been given every advantage I had to fight for, and you wasted all of it. That's not my fault, and it's not my problem. I made mistakes, he admitted, but everyone deserves a second chance. You've had about 50 chances, I interrupted, funded by mom and dad. None of them worked because you don't want to do the actual work. You want the result without the effort. That's not how life works. So, you're just going to leave me with nothing? His voice rose. While you sit on $30 million, I'm going to leave you exactly where your choices left you. I corrected. With the consequences of your decisions, maybe experiencing actual hardship will teach you something that a lifetime of coddling couldn't. I turned to walk back inside. I'll never forgive you for this, he shouted after me. Good. I called back without turning around. That makes us even. Haven't heard from him since. My parents still try occasionally. Birthday texts I don't respond to. Holiday cards with guilt-laden messages about family forgiveness. Random attempts to restart conversation that I ignore. Tyler apparently got a real job finally. Some entry-level position at a tech company. Living in a shared apartment with roommates. Learning what it's like to actually support himself at 30 years old. Good for him, I guess. My life is better than it's ever been. Great relationship, fulfilling work, financial security, and peace of mind knowing I don't owe anything to people who never valued me until I had something they wanted. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.